Zoom? I just did. So we are now recording. We did have people ask that we share this with them. So I want to make sure that everybody knows they're being recorded. So we have with us today two presenters from Butler Tech, and while their stuff is way more than just graduation plans and success plans, I think the system that they have created will give you ideas on how you too could begin to use their system as a means to implement all this stuff that is now on our to-do list, right? So we've got graduation plans, readiness seals, success plans, trying to get some work-based learning, trying to get some of our students their industry recognized credentials. And then on top of that, we also have students who also need transition plans. So there is a lot on our plate and it seems overwhelming. In fact, I hear a lot of, oh, where am I going to find the time to do this? We don't have the time to do this. Or I hear the can'ts, right? We can't do this. It's not built into our day. We can't make this happen on the schedule that we currently have. Or these students can't earn industry recognized credentials because they're meant for adults and they're too hard for them to achieve. I want to challenge your thinking. I want you to consider to cut that out, right? Stop thinking we can't, because it's not about that we can't, it's about how can we make this happen? How can we give them opportunities within our school day to earn industry recognized credentials, to earn the Ohio Means Jobs Readiness Seal, to earn some community service hours? How can we embed all of that into our school day? I know that is kind of like thinking outside the box. I've never heard of anyone doing that. But really, if we focus on that, how we can make things happen, we can get rid of that we can't make this happen, right? So we need to focus on how can we make this happen, not we can't make this happen. And Ohio has given you permission to think outside the box. So in Each Child, Our Future, which is kind of like Ohio's strategic plan, they are saying, we acknowledge that one size does not fit all. This plan was not developed to be a prescriptive mandate. The intent is to inspire and inform discussions about what is happening in schools each day. It is meant to support action in the name of continuous improvement. It is meant to bring schools and districts together to address shared needs and challenges and identify multiple approaches to achieving excellence. This plan embraces the idea that there is no one-size-fits-all approach. Ohio is giving you permission to transform your high schools, switch up those bell schedules, change the way students come and go from your schools so that we can provide more pathways to graduation. They are giving you permission to do that. We don't have to do what we have always done. And so I have some examples to share with you today of schools that are transforming that high school experience. Butler Tech, who is our guest speakers today, and they're just doing a bang up job with the way that they are implementing their 5th day experience and all the options they are providing for students during that 5th day experience. So they're here today. They're going to talk you through that. Please ask them lots of questions. I know it may be a little bit of a shock to your system to see what they're doing, and they will tell you it wasn't an easy off the bat. We thought of doing this and implemented it 2 months later. It takes some time to do what they've done, but it's well worth putting in the time to make this happen for your students. And then also I have an example from Davis Baker, who is an administrator over by Cleveland. He also runs something on a much smaller scale, only for students who are at risk for graduation. And then we have another example from the Fairview area, from the Cleveland area, Fairview High School, not in Region 1, which there is a Fairview High School in Region 1. But this one is in Cleveland. They do something called Thursday Communities. And so I will share that with you. But I'm going to turn it over right now to Ann Rush and William Sprinkles, and they are going to share with us their 5th day experience. I do have live linked in this slide right here in case you want to come back to it later, their website, which will take you to a video, and maybe they'll show that to you today. Just really amazing stuff they have going on. And I am so happy that they are here to share with you what they have going on at Butler Tech. So I'm going to stop sharing, and I assume you'll want to share the screen.
Yes, I will. It says
I need to make you a co-host. You are now a co-host, and I will stop sharing.
Okay. All right. Let me get to the appropriate screen. All right. Where is? Sorry, it's being a little finicky.
Lisa, while she's pulling that up, I was glancing at my screen because I'm on my phone. Who's on the call? You're on the call. Aaron's on the call. Nancy. I see a Stephanie. And who else? That's Susan. Am I reading that right?
Yes, we have Emily from Fremont. We have Susan, and we have Nancy from Lakota. Susan's from Ohio Virtual. Stephanie and Valley Robinson. Valley, I believe, is our only career tech person on the call today. Everybody else is joining us from traditional school settings.
Great. All right. Well, I believe that I was able to get things set up at this point in time. Can somebody give me a thumbs up that you can see the presentation? Okay, perfect. So yes, so my name is Ann Rush, and I am the programming coordinator for the secondary side of Butler Tech. And I work alongside William Sprinkles as we, try to make sure that we're doing what the best thing that we can for students, which is how do we get them out our door and be successful, and how do we do that with the most number of students that we possibly can. So what we're here to talk about today is something called our 5th day experience, and really we kind of liken it to our way of disrupting education one Friday at a time. So we're going to start off. I have multiple screens going here. All right, I'm going to start off with a quick virtual table talk. So what I'd like you guys to do is just think for about 60 seconds about as many things as possible that you would want to add or offer to provide students during a traditional school day, but struggle to do so during that traditional school day because of X, Y, and Z that has to occur between that 7 a.m. and 4 p.m. timeframe. So give us about 60 seconds to think through, and then I'm going to ask for at least 3 people to share. Okay, about 10 more seconds. All right. So can I have 3 people share with me what are some things that you would like to do during a traditional school day, but just cannot find time for right now?
I'll share out that if I were back in a traditional school, I really wish there was some time that we could build into every day for students to have that brain break and do something like yoga or cardio drumming or just meditation, but just to have that mental health built in daily or weekly, but more structured, not a free for all.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Anybody else?
Valley said she agrees with the mental break. She put that in chat.
Great. I was going to say, William, we got a quiet group today.
So yeah, you can type it in the chat. You can say it. I say one other thing too. Oh, we got some here, career awareness.
Okay,
Graduation plans for all students, not just CT students.
perfect. Great. No, I love that.
I was also
So-
going to add one other one just for fun too, like financial literacy classes for everyone. Or more
Absolutely.
opportunities for volunteering. They're starting to come in now in the chat. Sorry.
Great. Yes, absolutely. All of those are great opportunities. So just to give you guys a little bit of an understanding of what Butler Tech is, who we are a large career tech education district that is located in Southwest Ohio. We serve approximately 17,000 students daily, either on one of our 4 high school campuses or at one of our over 50 satellite locations where we have a Butler Tech instructor in one of our associate schools. And those associate schools are found through our 11 feeder districts. And over the course of those 4 campuses and 50 satellite locations, we have approximately 650 staff members. So we are a rather large district. So when we're talking about something like Fifth Day Experience, we are fortunate enough that we have a great deal of resources that we can utilize as we are trying to implement undertakings such as this. That said, you know, sometimes we might bite off a little bit more that even we can chew, but you know, we certainly work together and we certainly try to make sure that, you know, at the end of the day, we're getting things where we need to get them. But my whole point in sharing that is the fact that even though we're going to share with you today what we did as a large district, don't necessarily feel like that you have to bite off as much as we did. You know, find something small, maybe a quick win that might be an opportunity for your district that you may not already be utilizing, or, you know, an opportunity that may be present moving forward. And I say that because within our district, like I said, you know, sometimes we even take on projects that are a little bit more than we can, you know, think that we can chew at certain times. But part of the reason we're able to work through that is because several years ago as a district, we developed what are known as our district norms. And they are based upon the word empower, where each letter in the word empower means a certain thing. So when we're talking about something like Fifth Day Experience, you know, we really focused a lot on the productive struggle because there were a lot of things that came up like, okay, this is not how you normally do school. So what are we going to do in this case? Or how do we answer questions, you know, that the state or that parents or that teachers are asking us about why we're doing this or how can we do this? You know, so there was certainly some productive struggle, but knowing that we had the permission to take risks and that we all served together as thought leaders. It wasn't just, you know, William or our superintendent or, you know, a principal saying, hey, we need to do this and this is how we're going to do it. There's no problem with anybody reaching out with an idea or asking a question because they're not sure how something is going to work. So being rooted in these norms really gives us the opportunity as a district to be collaborative and all be thought partners together and understand that it's okay if we're struggling together through things. It's okay if the answers aren't there immediately, and we can struggle to get to what those answers are, even if it's not right in front of us. So where did Fifth Day Experience come from? When we're looking at an opportunity like Fifth Day Experience, Butler Tech as an organization is very much about transforming the lives of students. And when we think about transforming the lives of students, it goes beyond just transforming their lives educationally. And education can open a door, but there's so much more that goes into educating the entire child. You know, being from Cincinnati, you know, a lot of times the first 2 questions that you're ever asked when you meet somebody new is, what do you do and where did you go to high school? Because those are the things that, you know, define you in Southwest Ohio typically. But, you know, when I look at even me as a person, I'm more than just my job title, how much I make, or where I went to high school. You know, yes, I am the programming coordinator for Butler Tech, but I'm also a wife. I'm also a mom. I'm also, you know, a volleyball coach. I'm also a friend. I'm also a volunteer. So there's so much more than who I am that goes into who I am than just what my job title is. So education needs to be more than just about preparing somebody for a career. We need to prepare them to be an employee. We need to prepare them to be a citizen. We need to prepare them to be an empathetic person. So it's really, how do we not just foster the academic side of a child, but how do we foster that entire child as part of that? William, I saw you on mute for a second. Is there something you wanted to interject? Okay. All right. So when we're talking about Fifth Day Experience, there was a couple of core values that we were thinking about. You know, looking at equity among our students, no matter what we were doing, we wanted to make sure that all of our students had access to all of the programs that we were offering. We wanted to make sure that students had transportation and no one was being left out because of transportation access. And we wanted to make sure that our students had food access as well. So when it came to what, I'm going to go ahead and speak through this a little bit. When it came to what Fifth Day Experience is, it was really looking at how do we provide opportunities for students beyond what we're already doing. So where this came from was we actually had a snow day, now that we're post-pandemic, those don't really happen anymore, but we had a snow day where many of our administrators were at our central office locations, but teachers and students weren't there because of the inclement weather. And if you have interaction with a career tech center, you would know that, planning spring break is probably one of the most challenging things that a career tech center has to do, because they're trying to plan 1 week around 3, 4, 7, 11 different associate schools that all have spring break at a different time and trying to figure out where the best one is. So we were talking about our calendar and we were running into, well, let's do it this week. Well, we can't do it this week because of this. And so our superintendent just kind of threw out there, well, what if we didn't have spring break? And from the question, what if we didn't have spring break, came this idea of what other opportunities could we do with those days? So during that first year, the thought was, how can we shift those 5 days that were initially spring break and would not be school days for our staff and our students? How do we then shift those to Fridays and provide optional opportunities for students so that they could come in on what would otherwise be a day off and get some of those things that we even struggled to find time to implement during the regular school day? Some of the mental health, some of the social emotional learning, driver's ed, some of the different field trips, college visits, field experiences, those kinds of things. So when we talk about equity, identifying that, those are not school days, we were then able to provide students who have food insecurity with food on extra days that were not typically school days. We were able to provide transportation for enrichment opportunities on days where students wouldn't necessarily otherwise have to come to school. So it was really about providing the most opportunity for students within this new structure. This new structure was also designed for personalized learning. So we wanted to have customized schedules that led to student choice of location and activities. It wasn't us as an adult saying, hey, we think you as a student need this. It was, what do you as a student feel like you need to better your educational experience? And we did that by creating opportunity across all 15 weeks. And even though spring break was only a 5-day window that we moved to those Fridays, we were able to adjust our calendar in other ways to make the full 15 weeks work in terms of having those Fridays as, for lack of a better term, off days. The other benefit of having Fifth Day Experience, and one of our core values in its design, was innovation around programming. How do we blend programs together? Maybe programs that don't necessarily seem like they would initially work together. Our welding instructor would offer a welding 101 course that some of our art students could take, so that, a student who may want to be a sculpture artist, could learn how to work with metal. Or, do we have IT students going with our mechatronics or our robotics students to learn about some of the, electronics or the IT infrastructure that might work with robotics and those kinds of things? So how do we have programs working together that wouldn't otherwise work together? How can we try out new programs, see if something is something that we want to try and figure out and fit? And also, how do we bring industry into schools? So it also provided us with an opportunity to try some things out. And if they work, great. If they didn't work, we weren't, really tied into them for the long term. It was just a short-term experiment to see what happened. So when it came to redesigning what our school structure looked like, that first year in what we call version 1.0, school has an optional component on Fridays. Okay, so like I said, it was a restructuring of our spring break schedule. So students didn't necessarily have to come to school. But the way we incentivized students to come in on those Fridays was because the activities and the schedules were student driven. So And I'll talk about that in a minute, about how did we get what those student-driven activities were. But we even had some activities that were student-led. So we had students who said, you know what, I would really like to offer this particular course, or I really like to, be able to teach my peers this. And by doing that, it was not just our staff and adults that were taking ownership of these days. It was actually our students as well who were taking ownerships of those days. The other thing we really worked hard to do with these Fifth Day Experience Fridays was we wanted to provide little to no limits on the possibilities. How often are students and young people told no by adults? So this was our opportunity to not necessarily say no to a student. Let's try it out and let's see if it worked. So, focus on work-based learning or personal wellness and mental health, providing industry visits or tours, college visits, service learning opportunities like we talked about earlier. So it was really an opportunity to show students different aspects and different things about not just their own program, but the other things that Butler Tech has to offer, or the other things that Butler Tech could open their eyes to. And one thing I'll say real quick before moving on, with the idea of this being an optional, one of the big pushbacks that we would often get is, well, what if kids don't show up? The first time we did this, it was actually yet another inclement weather day. But we still had approximately 400 students show up, not just only on a day that they didn't have to come to school, but also on a day when the weather was not as ideal as it could have been. So it really gave us an idea that, we might be on to something. Now, when we talked earlier about the fact that everything was student-led, we had to have a process for soliciting our student voice, all right? And it wasn't just, hey, throw your ideas to us. We had to have a systematic way in order to be able to do that. So we started with some surveys. We have a district database called QuickBase, where we're able to push out surveys to students. And we were able to push out some initial surveys just to get some initial ideas as to where students' heads were at. Like, hey, if you can design a day, what would your day look like? Then we had some smaller focus groups we were actually able to interact with and talk with students to get a little bit more depth in terms of what their ideas were. We utilized a tool called Jamboard, where teachers and students were able to just kind of throw up ideas as far as what they wanted to do or what they wanted to learn about. We provided some videos of what we saw this being as, or what students saw this being as. And we were able to kind of help paint a picture of what Fifth Day Experience might be to help get more ideas. And then finally, our principal would do some Zoom calls with students to get even more ideas and more student voice in this process. This here is just an example of one of the Jamboards that we had coming up. So it was just an idea. Like, some of the stuff on here were things that, we had, are things that we might typically see as far as, some sort of student choice type of things. But when you see things like social emotional groups, or adulting 101, or gardening and hydroponics in the greenhouse, our greenhouse typically doesn't, it's not a functioning greenhouse right now, but seeing that there are students with that interest, is that something that we need to revisit? This gave us the opportunity to look at how that happens. So really trying to figure out, how we take all of these various ideas and topics and bring them together into a conducive day. Excuse me. And this is the video that we were talking about earlier. So I'll go ahead and press play. And if somebody can just let me know if the sound works through what we're doing. Let's see here.
If you're a college student, keep watching. One of my least favorite things about writing.
All right. There's an ad. Hold on one second. Are you able to see that's the video screen?
I'm not sure if we're seeing the video screen.
Okay.
We see the young lady at her
Okay.
computer, but we did hear it.
Okay, so I'm going to do a new share so you guys can see this. Okay, I apologize for the YouTube ad that is going on right now. All right.
Writing papers in college was remembering the correct format for my citations. In high school.
All right. Is it working now?
So you're definitely wondering.
We're still seeing the static screen right now.
You're still seeing the what? Oh, the share screen. Oh, there we go.
Just just a picture of her right now.
Okay. There we go. Thank you for letting me know that.
Oh, there we go. Now we got it.
Okay, perfect.
So you're definitely wondering, what's the 5th day experience? It's probably more than wondering, right? But don't worry, let's go cover some details. Learning is everywhere, and for the Butler Tech 5th day experience, I can be outside the classroom 1 day a week. Is it supposed to do that? For my 5th day experience, I get to choose what I want to do. I can work or intern with a company. I can go on college visits or volunteer and grow my passion. My 5th day experience can be whatever I want it to be and can happen anywhere. The 5th day experience is designed to allow me to choose whatever piques my curiosity and fosters a love of learning for my passion. Look at all those options. I can choose a 5th day experience on or off a Butler Tech campus. Busing is provided for students who are bus riders, and student drivers can continue to drive to their experiences on or off campus. Also, regular school meals are provided. Even though I'm not required to participate in the 5th day experience, it would give me opportunities to grow outside of a normal classroom setting. You play a huge role in ensuring your Butler Tech student has an incredible 5th day experience. This will be a powerful time of growth for us, and your student will need your encouragement to make the most of it.
Looks great.
Taking you to Flavortown.
Sounds good.
I know you probably have a few more questions, so check out the Butler Tech 5th day experience website for more information. Let's leave on one thought. If you could go back, what would you have done with your 5th day experience in high school?
All right. All right, I think we're back to the main PowerPoint now.
Yes.
So that last question is actually my favorite part of it, because it's like, what would I do if I could go back to high school? What would I have wanted to do if I had the opportunity to go back? And as a parent, what do I hope that my kids' high school experience is like? What do I want my kids to partake in? Because again, I want my kids to be more than just what their job title is or what their career is. I want to make sure that they're well-rounded individuals as well. So, when we talk about, we at Butler Tech, we talk often about our why, and for me, it's about, every student should have the same experience that I want for my own kids, even though they're not my own kids, so it's really leading with that when we're thinking about these different experiences or trying something new. It's what would I want for my own kids that, I didn't have when I was younger. So it's really working through that side of things. All right, let's go. Oh, wait. There we go. So as I mentioned, the 5th day experience has gone through several iterations over the course of the past several years. So Model 1.0 was during the 2019-2020 school year. And as you all well know, come March of 2020 was when the world kind of was turned upside down. And if you notice from the videos, this experiment or this experience started on February 15th. So we got about 3 weeks in before the world shut down. So that was our Model 1.0, where the 15 Fridays were optional. We had non-school days, and students really got to pick where they were. For Model 2.0, that was the 2020-2021 school year, where nobody's school year was really normal. We were on a blended day. It was kind of unexpected. So we still had 15 Fridays that were optional, but about a quarter to a third of the way in the school year, we were noticing that our kids were really struggling with, some of that hybrid scheduling that we had to do. So instead of moving to more of 100% innovation, like we were doing before, the focus really turned to intervention during this Model 2.0 year, when we were realizing that our kids had specific needs that we had to meet during this time. So we utilized 5th day experience 90% of the time to help meet some of those remediation or gap needs that we found our students needing. But we still utilized and reserved about 10% of that time for innovation, because we didn't want to totally lose sight of why we had initially gone down this path. When we went into the spring of 2021, we had an additional 15 Fridays. COVID did continue, obviously. And with that, we were able to open the door just a little bit because our students were able to get a little bit more comfortable with our hybrid schedule and what that hybrid model was. And we were able to move to about 50% intervention and about 50% innovation. So we were able to get back and bring back some of those things that we had in the first iteration of fifth day experience. So really, when we looked at model 2.0, we went from just a spring cohort to actually a fall cohort of fifth day experience, and then a second spring cohort of fifth day experience. So everything was still kind of optional at that point. Again, it was by manipulating the calendar and moving days around. In the model 3.0, which started last year and continued into this school year, again, we're doing 30 Fridays, but here's where it got a little bit different. Because we're doing 30 Fridays, we were actually able to utilize the innovative pilot waiver that ODE offers. And we were able to get those 30 Fridays as blended learning days. So they're no longer outside of our regular school calendar. They're now within our school calendar. And that really speaks to, just because the answer has always been no, or just because you didn't think you were able to do something, now is the time to ask. Now's the time to see, what can we do? Or we have this innovative idea that we want to work through. How can we make this happen? So for this model 3.0, it is, like I said, 30 Fridays. During quarter one of the school year, all of the fifth day experiences are very campus controlled and mandatory, and students are required to be here on Fridays. And the goal of that is to get students in the door, see what fifth day experience is all about, see what we're trying to do. Several of our campuses run this as like mini conferences for students, run those Fridays as mini conferences for students where they can pick their own schedule, see how they're doing different things, or learn about different experiences that are going on. During quarter two, the campus opens up a little bit, and the students have a little bit more choice to go in and out of different things. You know, there are opportunities sometimes for students to, not come in on a particular Friday. So, when we're looking at that, it was looking at, all right, is that important, or are we going to have students that are not showing up? But we did see that there was value in students who were not coming to school, because often they had experiences or had things that they were doing that provided value outside of the regular school day. Like, we've surveyed students a lot during our first couple of years of doing this to see what they were doing when they were on campus or off campus and how that made them feel. And for some of our students who would not come to campus, what would end up happening is the fact that, they may not have come to school because they had a family member who had a doctor's appointment and they were able to provide that transportation, or they stayed home and they were watching a younger sibling. And because they stayed home and watched a younger sibling, a parent was able to go out and work, so it was really, we were finding that there was value outside of what we initially saw as just the value in those fifth day experience Fridays. Now, when we look at that student choice, and we look at the student choice and the ability to be able to come in on Fridays or not come in on Fridays, we have in some instances seen a dip in attendance a little bit, but then we've also had conversations about, well, what does that look like? Do we still provide students with that opportunity? But then do we also, maybe put a little bit of a buffer or a barrier on that, not barrier, but a buffer on it to say, you get 3 personal days a year. And once those personal days are utilized, then, you're expected to be there. But much like, the work environment, you might get some personal time and you can use those as you want to, but once they're gone, they're gone. So really understanding what that looks like and providing that student choice still. And during this third iteration, during semester 2, students get full choice of all of our campuses. So if we have a student from our biomed campus that wants to do something on our natural science center campus or equine programs, they have the autonomy to move in and out of those various spaces. We have a website where students will go and select different activities and sign up for different activities and be able to utilize that. So that's been very helpful in trying to manage this. But as we look at what the various experiences are, well, actually, before I jump ahead to that, when we were designing this, there are some questions that you need to consider as part of this. And And like I said, this is one of those situations where you very much want to, you know, look at your situation and decide how much do you want to try during your first go around. Because there are obviously calendar implications. How often do you want to do this? Are there impacts on other dates or testing? You know, are you ensuring that you're getting enough instructional hours or days in the particular calendar? So seeing what that looks like. Looking at the overall logistics, is this going to be a full day experience for students, or is it only going to be a partial experience for students? How are you going to manage the transportation and food service logistics? Are there any budget considerations? So when we did our first iteration of this, again, it was a day off for teachers. So the way we had teachers come in is if we were paying teachers extra. So we had to have a budget allocated for not only just the staffing costs, but any additional supply costs or those kinds of things that were going along with that. And then finally, teacher conversations as well and considerations, because, you know, a lot of this was about our students, but we had to be considerate of our staff as well and have those conversations with them as well. Additionally, there were just some weekly and daily planning logistics that had to happen. You know, first of all, who coordinates all of this? You know, so we had to find somebody internally that was able to help manage and organize all of these various, experiences and idiosyncrasies that went along with each one, like which one needs a sign up or which one needs a permission slip and all of those kinds of things. Talking about what is required versus what is voluntary. Where is student interest, and what do you do if you don't have interest in a particular area, or you have too much interest in a particular area? When we're talking about student interest, one thing we ran into is students having a fear of missing out. You know, so initially we offered some additional CCP course options during fifth day experience. So we would have students sign up for those courses, but what would happen is students would sign up and then they saw these other opportunities that they were missing out on. So they would drop the CCP course, or they wouldn't show up for a CCP course. And we're like, this isn't good for kids. So we've now backed away from doing CCP courses during that, because we didn't want the fear of missing out to inadvertently affect a student. The various balance of opportunities, how do you ensure that, you know, you have a wide variety of students to be able to do? And how do we coordinate these efforts to support other CTE opportunities and initiatives across the district? So how are we making sure that we support work-based learning or the earning of credentials as part of this? Maybe not every student needs a credential or wants a credential, but how do we make sure that that opportunity is available if a student needs or wants it? Excuse me. In the time that I have left, just want to highlight a couple of different events that we've utilized. We have some teachers that have taken some students on some very innovative field trips, very interesting things around the city. They're getting ready to do a lot of industry tours with our local airport, the Airstream factory, looking at the culinary opportunities within Findlay Market, the American Sign Museum or the Air Force Museum. Those have been great experiences for students, not just to learn about, the innovation besides those areas, but also the history behind those areas and what that is. We've also offered a car care 101, where our auto tech students have actually provided instruction for other students around how to care for their car as they're, leaving to go out in the world, and also college visits and college fairs. In talking with one of our instructors about, some of these various events, one of the coolest things that has come from events like this. So some people might be like, well, that's just a really cool field trip. It is a really cool field trip, but for me personally, so I live about 30 minutes north of downtown Cincinnati, grew about 30 minutes north of downtown Cincinnati, but I also went to college at the University of Cincinnati and I commuted. So the idea of driving to downtown Cincinnati is no big deal for me. That's, I could almost do it in my sleep at this point. But from what teachers have told me, when they take kids down to some of these places in downtown Cincinnati, they'll get on the bus here at Butler Tech and they'll be on their phones, they're listening to music, whatever. The minute they get off the highway in downtown, they're off their phones, they're off their headphones, and their head is just on a swivel. And, it's really, I take for granted the fact that downtown Cincinnati is so close and that I'm there on a regular basis. we have some students who have never left Butler County. So these experiences are allowing them an opportunity to leave a part of the town that they may have never left before, to see what is outside of their own backyard. So just providing them with that experience and opening their eyes has been a great kind of residual benefit of this opportunity. Wanted to give you a few different resources. The video mentioned our website, our 5th Day Experience website, fde.butlertech.org. On this website, we have all of the tools and surveys and Jamboards that we utilized, as well as a research brief from Miami University and some local news clips and other media about what this experience is, if you'd like more information about that. But, you know, just kind of wanted to provide you with an overall understanding of what 5th Day Experience is, and that, you know, it's kind of, you know, a lot of information, but at the same time, it provides so much opportunity for students that it's worth all the hard work that goes in on the back end. So with that, William, I know you were in the car, so you weren't interjecting much, but I want to give you a chance to interject with anything that you might want to share.
So there's I'll keep it brief since we're 3:15. If I were at a high school right now that's not Butler Tech, and I was hearing about this from someone else, what I would try to do to make it simple is just isolate one Friday. There's a handful of districts that have partnered with us in the last like 6 months to a year that are exploring this. If you try to think about it across the whole semester, an entire quarter, an entire year, it just doesn't materialize. The way to get it to materialize is pick a Friday in second semester, the second Friday in February, and just don't do regular school. No matter what you do, don't do regular school. Your teachers, your staff, your students, if you let them all contribute to redesigning just one school day, everybody's light bulbs will go off about what's possible from that point onward. And so don't try to force the design model if you're the principal. Let teachers have some voice in it. You should have some voice in it as the administrative team. Kids should have some voice in it. Some other stakeholders perhaps. Just let your team run with it. Just one Friday. We are not going to do regular classes, and see what happens in your building. And I promise it'll build excitement in your space. That's the easiest thing to do. And even if all you achieve is one Friday, then you've given kids one Friday of a non-traditional school day. And that alone is worth your return on investment, to simply just keep your culture fresh, keep your culture fun, keep your culture upbeat. The second thing that's important to share is, if you are a school that struggles to get pockets of planning time for your teachers, you can use this day to create pockets of planning time. So what we tend to do in most of our cases, each teacher does a half-day 5th Day Experience, so that the menu of opportunities is broad, but the other half of their day, they get back in their pocket to plan units of instruction, to collaborate, to observe, to grade papers, to do projects. And some of our teachers who are not fond of 5th Day at the very beginning of this process recognized that we were still trying to be equitable in respecting their time, because they were doing something extra above and beyond their traditional bells of instruction. So it kind of mitigated some of those pockets of resistance. And then for us, you know, Anne in her presentation, she shared with you, this is our first, second, third, fourth iteration. As soon as Thanksgiving is over, we're going to start the process of redesigning our calendar for our 5th and 6th iterations of this next year. And we're going to redesign it again. Every iteration has been different every single year, but the principle is, or the value is, do something different once a week, and it'll create disruption in your school district in a way where you can start to solve some of the things you can't solve in a regular school week. Is that a good summary, Lisa? Anything else that Ann or I can lift?
No, I think that was a great way. I think that was a great way to end that with, you know, using this day to solve some of the things you aren't able to solve in a regular school day. That's fantastic. That's why I brought you guys in. I wanted this group to see that there are other ways of doing things that really can be beneficial to everyone involved and bring some excitement back into your schools. What questions do you folks have for Ann or for William? Just go ahead and unmute or put it in chat.
This is Bailey at Oregon City Schools and Clay High School. We're a comprehensive district. We love this idea and would love to do it. However, some of our other administrators are not on board with the idea of this quote unquote flexible schedule, things of that nature. I'm assuming not all staff was on board with this new concept, or right, I see you both shaking your heads now. I guess any sort of advice or any tidbits that maybe perhaps are some of our current admin could maybe get more on board with this concept of trying, even one day. I think it would be a lot for this particular administrator.
Yeah, so that's a great question. To be clear, we still have pockets of teachers that this isn't their favorite thing to do. There's many that have bought into it and have ownership around it and appreciate it. But there are pockets of our team members that are still somewhat resistant to it. That doesn't mean we're gonna not do it. I mean, we're gonna keep trucking because we believe as the leadership team, it's the right thing for kids to experience. So yes, there is some dissonance. There's not 100% ownership around it, but we have a critical mass around it to make it work. So that's the first thing. The second thing is Ann mentioned this concept called a mini conference. It's like we have one of our campuses called Bioscience Center. They have 350 kids. What they do is they build out 6 opportunities that the kids diagonally rotate through the day on. And so it's not flexible, it's just different. The kids, it's like going to a professional conference and all kids rotate through the same 6 sessions. That's one way to get started because you don't have to design 99 things. Just design 5 or 6 different experiences that would take the place of a traditional 5, 6, or 7 bell school day. Keep your bells the same and let kids rotate through the bells, but deploy some school-wide conversations, experiences, or initiatives that just start to create a different feel for the particular day. Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely. We do something similar for like a college and career day for our juniors and seniors. And that is, no big deal. Everyone understands it, is on board. But then scaling that from 600 to 1,200 students might be a little bit different. But regardless, I think that's a great idea to think about it in that term instead of kind of a quote unquote free for all or an alternative day.
It is hard. Our main campus has 1,200 too. And it's hard to restructure the whole day for 1,200. It's easier to restructure if you only got 300 or 400 at a smaller campus. That's why I gave that example. Here's why I'm sharing that with you. Certain days, they just have the juniors do it. Certain days, just the seniors, and you populate your target audience in half. And so it cuts your management of free-for-all in half. But the other kids are hearing about it. They're like, why do they get to do that? And why do we not get to do that? And then students kind of put some authentic pressure in the culture because they want access to the same opportunities.
Mm-hmm. I think the other thing too is in hearing what you're talking about, you do the college and career fair for your juniors and seniors, maybe something to just start this process is, how do you flip that and how do you create something maybe just for the freshmen and sophomores, that is more of a, is some more of these, student choice opportunities or these mental health, social, emotional learning opportunities, as opposed to that college and career fair. The college and career fair could be very beneficial for the freshmen and sophomores also, obviously, but it may be your way to put kind of your toe in the water to figure out how to at least get something started.
Yeah, those are some great suggestions. Thank you to William and Ann, because really that both of you gave some really good ideas on how she could tackle that. Anyone else have questions? I have a feeling some of their heads are just spinning right now.
Yeah, anybody can reach out after the call, and if you want some more targeted brainstorming or partnership around the size of your particular school or programs that you want to think about, Ann and I can easily serve as thought partners to help you guys ideate, design, and brainstorm based on our best practices. Like I told you, we still don't have it right. We just believe there's value in keeping the process alive.
Mhm.
And we're going to go through an entire iteration next year. It's going to be something different than what we've been doing the prior 4 years. So Ann and I are at anyone's service on this call to be of a thought partner as a fellow educator around the state. Feel free to reach out.
And the other
Another-
thing too is if there's if you're ever interested in coming down on a Friday to see what we're doing or see how it operates, you know, certainly reach out to William or I, and we can certainly help to facilitate that as well.
Thank you. Thank you for that offer.
One other quick question, if I may. Could you touch on real quickly what was like the reaction of the community, specifically the parents, in regards to this? I mean, were they really into it?
Yeah.
Were there some pushback? What was the parent take? 'Cause I know that's something that I think sometimes upper administration will ask about, is like, what will the parents think of this?
It was mixed, but all in good mixed ways. What I mean by that, Aaron, is the dominant response was confusion. What do you mean school's required, but it's not required? And some kids can go and some kids can stay at home. And do they go to their lab or do they not go to their lab? Confusion was really the dominant response. And we had, but we had kids sign up for sessions and then they didn't show up. So their parents were getting phone calls that their kid was absent. And kids are teenagers. They did teenager things like I would. If I was the 17-year-old version of me and somebody was like, you don't have to go to school, I would have told my mom I was going to school and I would have went and hung out with Lisa for the day and we would have snuck out to the Browns game or something. I don't know. So that's the thing, right? Like the kids are kids. You can't let it stop you from doing fun, innovative things still. The second thing from our community is really was a high level of curiosity. What happened next was business partners wanted to come in. They wanted to open up their doors. College partners wanted to come in. And once people in your local community know what you're doing on Friday, they start asking, can they help? Can they partner? Can they contribute? And it's kind of becoming part of our cultural identity, at least down here in Southwest Ohio, that some kids hear about it when they're in the 10th grade because we recruit sophomores because they come to us their junior year to our campuses. Some of our kids, it's like a recruiting tool because they feel that they're respected one day a week. School's not being forced on them. That's like a dominant thing in the surveys is I want to be treated like an adult. I want to control my time. I want to be able to have mental health, a breather. I want to go work. Some of those examples that Ann were giving, the community validated. So from confusion to partnership to validation, probably those are the three dominant emotional community stakeholder responses. And it's still some kid that showed up last week. His mom couldn't find him, and we were having to figure it out last week. Like it happened last Friday. Where it doesn't go away. You just gotta take it in stride and know that it's gonna come with a little bit of chaos. It's organized chaos.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Last thing, Lisa, let me finish this thought for Aaron. If you are a micromanager and there's people on this call, like including myself, certain things or initiatives I've been trained to like manage and hold on to, this thing will eat away at you because you can't control it. Like it forces me to be more of an adult because you can't control it. And so that energy is antithetical to education, right? We should be asking ourselves as educational practitioners on this call, are we trying to control every single location, bell, and hour of the day for our kids? And if we are, we should release some of that.
amen to that. right? Some authentic experiences come out of when you release and let students have a voice and have decision. All right, well, thank you so much to Anne and to William for sharing with us. You guys are welcome to stay on the call, or you can sign off as I continue, but thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. And don't hesitate to reach out if you all need anything.
All right, so great job to Butler Tech for sharing with us. The little image I have there with the creepy guys that Aaron does not like, it's a celebration. What they're doing is I think it's a celebration because I don't know how many years we have been doing high school the same way, but I'm guessing it's at least 100. And it's time for a change. It is time for us to evolve. And I'll admit, I think the pandemic helped us to evolve a little, but we need to not go back, right? We want to get back to where we were. We need to say, where are we going next? What does education look like in the future? And what steps are we taking right now to make that change? So great job celebrating with you, Butler Tech, on the wonderful things that they are doing. But you could be doing something similar. Like William said, maybe you start with just one day and maybe you control the kind of sessions that you have. Maybe you have small groups for success plan creation. You're planning into your day 50% required courses that kids have to go to and 50% of those fun courses that they could choose from. You could bring in mentors. You could have graduation plan sessions to just inform them about the CLs and the competency pathways. And then they would go to another session that would be building their graduation plans. Some of your sessions could be volunteer opportunities to work toward the community service seal. I know in my experience, math has been a more of a gap area for most schools. Maybe this is a great time for you to say, who needs some extra support? Let's get some extra math tutoring in here. And maybe we bring in our local business and industry guys and girls who have strong math skills and are willing to be tutors for 2 hours one Friday or every other month or whatever you decide to do for your experience days or seminar days. You could invite some of those community and industry experts in to give talks about what they do in their field, just to provide some of that career advising activities that are required by the career advising policy. And then finally, this is a great way. Having these seminar days, perfect opportunity to build in the industry recognized credential coursework. So earlier this morning, I had a session where I had a school talk about their implementation of the Rise Up credential. And that first Rise Up credential only takes, I wrote it down here, I think it's 20 hours of content. And you could do that over a span of 4 of these days. And they get that 6-point credential just by participating in all of the coursework, and then the instructor signs off. Or you can allow for an online curriculum. But again, that first IRC for the Rise Up, there was no test assessment that went with it. Now the next one there is, right? That second Rise Up credential is. But what a great way, if you're saying my school day does not allow for an additional place to add in industry recognized credentials. Well, here is the way you could do it, by taking a few days and altering how you run your school day. And, and as William said, start small. Start small, learn about the things you need to provide. And then once you get a year in, think big. How can you grow it? So that's one idea, right? But if you're thinking, I need to be smaller, I need to start small, maybe you start with student success plans. And we're just going to focus on that this year. So Davis Baker graciously shared all of this material. These are all live links. Aaron, if you could put this in the chat for us, just to my presentation. And then these are actually live linked for you on slide 13. So he runs basically a professional development day for students who are at risk for graduation. And so just to give you an overview of that day, and this was just a packet he put together for us. And I really liked this part of it, right? He calls it a success conference, not an at-risk conference. This is your success conference. Successful people in nearly every profession take time to attend local, state, national, and even international conferences to network, learn, and share new ideas or programs and gain inspiration from others. Conferences provide opportunities to advance the vision, mission, and goal of the organization or profession. It allows the attendees and our members to stay current with the latest research and provide proven practices, to recognize outstanding fieldwork and accomplishments, and to gather with old and new acquaintances, right? And so that's his vision with his success conference, is to provide an environment like that for his students who need an extra hand, students who need someone to see them. If you were in my success plan session last week and I talked about my buddy Shad, he needed someone to see him, not just to see the trouble he was causing, but what lied beneath that trouble and how could we find him a better outlet for what he needed. So here's his agenda, the things that he brings in. He always has guest speakers throughout the day, which might be because he's at a local school. He is not at a career tech center. He brings in the career tech to present. He brings in a local carpenter, excavator, fireman, right? Those local professionals to talk about their careers. He brings in military recruiters. He brings in financial agencies. He brings in a representative from the area's largest employer and a high school dropout who has done well, right? So if I could hook Davis Baker up with my buddy Shad, what a great example that could be to the students to know that there's potential out there. There's possibility out there. Don't give up. He also brings in court liaisons and probation officers. And then he has brought in members of the Chamber of Commerce. So this is all stuff that you have access to. I wanted you to be able to go through that and look at that. And here's a sample agenda of what a day might look like, right? So we're starting with a guest speaker. We're doing some team building activities, doing some asset inventories. This is where like some Ohio means job. Some of those inventories could take place. And then it's not, are you smart? It's how smart are you, right? So he has another guest speaker come in. And then at the end, what I really like to end the day, every single student who is at risk for graduation is partnered up with a mentor. That mentor comes and meets with them in person. And then they, on a weekly basis, have communication. They work on a SMART goal together. So really some fantastic stuff. And the unique thing about this, which I think it's in the invitation I'm going to show you, he takes them off site. They don't come to school that day, or maybe they come to school and he buses them somewhere else. But this success conference is held at an offsite location. He provides them with like pizza and pop. This is not a punishment for them. This is like I see you and I want to support you. And this is how we're going to do this together. And so here's a student invite. Congratulations. You've been chosen as one of a handful of students to attend a very special one-day high school success conference, right? It's not, hey, you've been identified as being at risk and we'd like you to attend this meeting. That is not how this comes across, right? So it's all in how you approach the student to get their buy-in and the way that it is read by the student and the parent. So Davis Baker, terrific stuff that he's doing. Lots of access for you to look over his materials. And then this real quick, I'm just going to show you, this is a school in the Cleveland area that presented for me last year. And I just want to show you, they totally changed their bell schedule. And they did this to provide in a weekly 2-hour schedule to do the kinds of things like provide time to make success plans, provide time for those extras. Here, let's take a cardio drumming class. Here, let's take a music class that I can't fit in because I can't take band every day, but I still like music. And so they have just, instead of doing a seminar day or a full day, they have taken 2 periods that they're doing every Thursday, and it's that Thursday experience, but they totally redid their entire schedule to figure out how to make that happen. So there's another resource for you. Their emails are at the bottom of that PowerPoint for you. So if you want to reach out to any of them to ask more questions, I'm sure they would be happy to Zoom with you for an hour as well, if this is more of the route you're thinking you would like to take. And I just want you to think about being intentional with what you offer. Look at your current juniors and seniors. I know a lot of schools right now are looking at their seniors, but I'm encouraging you to be a little more proactive and look at your juniors and seniors. Who needs what? In order to achieve graduation, what do those kids need? And you build your sessions off of what those students need. Then look at your current freshmen and sophomores. And how can you build in the graduation support sessions, like some industry recognized credentials, like some volunteer opportunities, success plan creation. When you're first starting out with this, keep the sessions focused on the needs of the students and allow the time. So really research, if you're looking at some IRCs, how much time would it take to get through that curriculum? So we're making sure that we're providing the right amount of time in sessions that those students would get that time in. In order to help you think through this whole process, I've also linked here for you the implementation stages planning tool. And right, and so it says, start out with make sure you're developing an implementation team where you have representatives of staff, students, right? Get their input. Identify what's needed. Do some research to learn about potential practices and programs that already address this need. So I've shown you 3 today: Butler Tech, Davis Baker, and Fairview. All 3 of those are schools you could reach out to learn more about how they're doing this. Or maybe you got enough information today to get you started. But here is another resource to use to get you implementing some kind of seminar day, PD day for students, however you want to call it. And there is still time to do this. Do 1 day each semester, right? You could still do 1 in December and do 1 in February, or wait until January and have 1 in January, February, March, April, May. Maybe you want to do what Fairview is doing and just do the 2-hour delay. Kids aren't delayed, we're still having school, but we're going to run that day on a delay schedule every week. Only with that extra 2 hours at the end of the day is when we'll have our sessions. Think outside the box. There are lots of ways to make this happen. It's not we can't, but how can we? And so that's what I want to leave you with, is for you to think about, what do we need to do? What does your school need to do and not do? So I am going to put in chat again the link to this presentation. And if you could go ahead and get to slide 18 and type into one of those squares, what do we need to do and not do? What is it we should be doing and maybe stop doing? So I'm going to type one in. So just put yours in there, thinking of everything you learned today. What is it we should be thinking about doing, that we should be doing and not continuing something else? I know I don't often ask for extra engagement like this with these power hours, but I thought it might be a nice way to end this session. So we need to focus more on what the current climate is and meet students where they are. We need to make time during the day to support students in graduation seal attainment, not put this burden of implementation on them. Absolutely. I really like that one. So we need to focus more on what the current climate is and meet students where they are, not focus on what the climate was and continue on the same path. That is fantastic. So thank you to those of you who participated with that. It's time to think differently and start doing something new and not continuing with the old. And with that, before we actually close, I didn't build in a slide for questions or comments, but does anybody want to unmute and ask any questions or maybe share anything that you guys have already started? Now would be a great time to do that. And if not, then our session is over today. I know once again, we crammed a lot into an hour. I hope there are things that you can take back and start having discussions in your district. Who's going to be the one to lead the work? Who needs to be included to make the work happen? And how do you include student voice? So you will be getting a survey feedback form from our secretary. Please take the time to fill that out and then she will send you your contact hours. But again, Erin and I are here. If you have any questions or just want to share what it is your school has happening in the terms of implementation of all of those things that we shared at the beginning: graduation plans, success plans, readiness seals, industry recognized credentials, work-based learning. There's a lot happening.
And again, just to reiterate what they said, don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to have these conversations. We appreciate you being here. We appreciate you taking this time. You don't ask, the answer is always no. Let's start these conversations. This is the time with these new graduation requirements and everything else. This is the time to start looking at how we can support students in these additional ways. So don't be afraid to start asking questions and have some conversations. And we could really make a very positive impact for all of your students. So thank you again for being here.
All right. Well, if you're signing off, have a great afternoon. Enjoy
Yes,
the
thank
last
you.
of that warm weather.
Yeah, we're getting to the end, I think. All right.